I came home one day and pressed my answering machine, and Sofia Coppola's voice was on it. Wasn't used to getting messages from the likes of Sofia Coppola, so I paid attention to it, and she said she would like to get together. At that point, a number of people had tried to make the film. A number of screenplays had been written. Nothing had come to fruition. What I noticed immediately about her was her effectiveness and her business savvy. Like, as soon as she got the rights, she had actors, she had the money to make the film, she had dates to film it, so suddenly it moved really, really quickly. She wanted to ask questions about my childhood, my town, what it looked like. She wanted to see my yearbooks from high school, and I provided those. I was sort of a consultant on the period, in a sense, even though the period is my life. I didn't have any concerns, really, because I didn't know enough to be concerned, particularly. I just thought, Sofia seems to love the book. She understands the book. She doesn't want to violate its atmosphere or its plot. There's nothing that happens in the plot that's different than the book. The atmosphere is the atmosphere. The things people say are often dialogue taken from the book. So I feel that Sofia was extremely faithful to the book. The original idea of the Virgin Suicides came to me. I was in my late 20s or early 30s, and I was at home in Detroit visiting my brother, and he had a young, son at that point, and a babysitter came over, and I got to talking to her. I'm not sure why, and she told me that she and all her sisters had tried to commit suicide, and I was astonished by that. And I asked her why, and she said, "I don't know. We were under a lot of pressure." So this idea came to me just by happenstance over maybe a 15-minute conversation with a stranger.
Our collection of souvenirs of the Lisbon girls, which still exists, started with Cecilia's diary. Parky'd gotten it from Skip Ortega, the plumber's assistant who had found it next to the toilet in the bathroom.
Since it was my first novel, I remember that the important thing was that I was limiting my possibilities in what I could write. I was writing from this point of view of these boys who didn't really know the girls, and the only thing that they could tell you about the girls was what they'd seen or what someone had reported to them, or if they found the girl's diary. So it limited my level of omniscience, which as a novelist I didn't really have the chops to handle. I could only piece out the information in this kind of detective story fashion. The question was how to tell the reader all these girls are going to commit suicide and yet still do it in a way that surprises the reader, because I give the plot away at the beginning. And that was also helpful to me as a beginning novelist because I knew the blueprint of the narrative. I knew, okay, all these girls committed suicide in a year. That's my story. Don't deviate from it. I thought it was a snappy title when it came into my mind, The Virgin Suicides. I mean, when you're writing your first book, no one knows who you are. So I knew it had a kind of sensational quality to it. I thought of the term virgin not just in terms of association with young girls, but also there are these virgin cards of the Virgin Mary that appear around the time of the suicides. So I knew that it had something to do with a Catholic family. I knew a lot of families like this, growing up, families where often the girls were held in check, and it sometimes resulted in really wild behavior on the part of the girls. I grew up in a family of 3 sons and no girls, so when I met families like that and went into their houses, it was the complete opposite of the atmosphere at my own house. It made me very receptive. I just noticed everything about houses like that because they were absolutely different than my own. I used to say it was like going on safari to an exotic location, and I would see that and it stuck in my mind.
I heard it was an accident.
No, it was no accident, Joan. Of course the parents are to blame. Well, I heard they found the razor in the toilet.
Everyone had an opinion as to why Cecilia tried to kill herself.
When I began The Virgin Suicides, it was going to be the entire town remembering these events. And then little by little, as I wrote from the older people's point of view, the younger people, I realized that the greatest heat was being generated whenever I was in the adolescent boy's point of view, because they were so focused on the girls, and there was an erotic and romantic element attached to their witnessing of the girls.
For example, we have two different types of...
I think of the book as being extremely male. It's written from the point of view of males. I'm always surprised to find that most of the readers of the book are teenage girls who feel that their life is being addressed and described.
Lux lost it over Kevin Haynes, the garbage man. She'd wake up at 5 in the morning and hang out casually on the front steps, like it wasn't completely obvious. She wrote his name in marker on all her bras and underwear, and Mom found them and bleached out all the Kevins. Lux was crying on her bed all day.
It's odd because the point of the book in many ways is that these boys don't really see the girls, but it opens a kind of vacuum or an emptiness in which I think the female reader, and especially the young female reader, can fill it with her own experience. Sophia alerted me to this fact after the film came out, that she thought the point of view of the film had shifted toward the girls. I think it has to do with the fact that the girls are presented as real characters, as physical characters in the film, so that you take their experience as real. But perhaps it also has something to do with Sophia's interest in their stories, or her sympathy for their experience in a way that perhaps is not depicted in the novel. The amount that it changed going toward the girls is actually closer to the way I felt about the material. It's a very ephemeral, sensitive book for all its darkness, and I didn't feel that she had changed that at all. But what I realized is, you write a book and you give it to someone to make into a film. The film is the dream. If the book had a dream, that would be the film. It wouldn't be the life of the book. It would exist as a correlative to your life, but also altered and sometimes unrecognizably so. The book exists on its voice. It's choral narration, and the girls are seen at a distance, and you're not sure which one is which, what are they really like. It's all subjective. As soon as you have an actress playing these roles, the weight of the girls increases. They become real. The viewer can only see Kirsten Dunst and the other girls and think, oh, that's what they were like. They were exactly like that. They sounded like this. This is what happened in the house. This is what the father was like. So that changes it quite a bit. There's no way around it once you make it a film. I was on set for a brief period, I think 3 days, in the very hot summer of whatever year that was, in Toronto. Sophia had a kind of quiet control of the set. You could see that she had grown up in the business and knew how it worked, even though that was her first film. And it was being done so that she didn't need to rant or scream or anything. She worked with the actors quietly, so I don't even know what she was saying to them. She would not intervene a lot with James and Kathleen. She would, go and talk to them a little bit. But it all seemed arranged and premeditated. There wasn't a lot of chaos at all. There was none. Josh Hartnett was very interested in the book and in the character and any information on the person I based the character on. He wanted to know, who was this guy? What should he be like? Am I playing him right? And we spent a significant amount of time in those few days. And he was very curious, very dedicated about playing the role. Everyone in the book has a model, and when I first wrote the first draft of it, I didn't change names for a long time, and then went back and changed them for lots of reasons. So I did know a Trip Fontaine. And I think I saw 2 or 3 scenes filmed, not too many. I saw the scene where Lux Lisbon and Trip Fontaine finally kiss in the car, where Sophia has Heart playing in the background. I have a certain amount of musical selections mentioned in the book. They tend to be dreamy, soft rock, and she put in some stronger rock that really works. It worked very well in that scene. The part of the movie that accords most closely with my memories are the Trip Fontaine sections. I can't imagine it being more faithful to how I expected Trip to look and act.
But the only reliable boy who actually got to know Lux was Trip Fontaine, who only 8 months before the suicides had emerged from baby fat to the delight of girls and mothers alike.
When you see a film of your book, there are times where it syncs with your memories, and then times, as with how the house looked in Toronto, where it's just different. When I saw the Lisbon house, it did not accord with my own memories of Grosse Pointe or the house that I had imagined the girls living in. The streets, they had cracks in them, and our streets were wonderfully paved. It wasn't quite as Tony as Grosse Pointe was, at least in my memory. I was born in the city of Detroit, but we moved to the suburbs by the time I was 5. And it's what I knew. I brought a grief for my hometown and all the things that I saw going wrong with the city, from my birth to becoming a man, a great city, going through great difficulties, and the trees dying, the industry dying, population dwindling. I had this feeling of something running out, and running down, and that quality is really what infuses the Virgin Suicides with its sense of impermanence. Sometimes I've known people extremely depressed who soldier on and don't get close to killing themselves, and then I've had these experiences where people do, and you're left wondering. And that's really what the book's about. It's about being left in the wake of it. It doesn't try to explain the suicides. It's an examination of how you feel as a bystander, as someone who is left powerless. And I think Sophia brought that kind of feeling to it.
What are you doing here, honey? You're not even old enough to know how bad life gets.
Obviously, Doctor, you've never been a 13-year-old girl.
I loved the soundtrack. It was one of the brilliant things that Sophia did. She could have easily made the film a kind of retro 70s film, but to put air and to put that music in made the movie a new thing. It made it not a kind of period piece. Absolutely, when you hear that music, you feel the atmosphere, you feel the movie, and strangely enough, I feel my book, even though the music had not been written when I wrote the book. So that was one of the triumphs of the film. As I've seen her progress and do all the films she's made, it makes quite certain that her choice of my book for her first film made a lot of sense, that she was drawn to it. It wasn't just because she read it and liked it. There's some fundamental quality of Sophia's vision and my own that is the same, despite our being very different people. And that just seems to be borne out more and more the more I see her work. I never have a problem where, in looking at the book or thinking about the book, I see the film, because it existed long before the film. That would happen to many other people who see the film and then read the book, or read the book and see the film, but not for me. It's too deeply inside me to be affected by any visual stimulation outside. I remember everything that happened. It doesn't seem to fade. Maybe just getting past it now, as old as I am. And moving on to more adult concerns. But that was a very formative, strong, dramatic time of my life. And it was easy to write a book about that. It's almost as though if a lot of my life is shrouded in darkness, there's a spotlight that glows in the years 14 to 17 or something like that, and it never goes off.